framework here is that one-third of the Republicans in this poll, one-third of the Republicans, and one-fourth of the people who say that, you know, they rather like you, believe you're hiding something. Now, if you are, here's a chance to get it out.
You know what I'm hiding? What I told the President. That's the only thing. And I've answered every question put before me. Now, if you have a question,
I do have one.
Please.
I have one.
Please fire
You have
away.
said that if you had known, this was an arms for hostages swap, that you would have opposed it. You also said that you did not know that...
May I answer that?
That wasn't a question. It was a statement.
Yes, it was a statement.
Let me ask the question if I may first.
The President created this program, as testified or stated publicly, he did not think it was arms for hostages. And it was only later that... And that's me. Because I went along with it, because you know why, Dan? Because I worried when I saw Mr. Buckley, heard about Mr. Buckley being tortured to death, later admitted as the CIA chief. So if I erred on the side of trying to get those hostages out of there.
Mr. Vice President, you set the rules for this talk here. I didn't mean to step on your line there, but you insisted that this be live, and you know that we have a limited amount of time.
That's why I want to get my share in here on something other than what you want to talk about.
The President has spoken for himself. I'm asking you to speak for yourself, which you have not been willing to do in the past. And if I may suggest that this is what leads people to say, quote, either George Bush was irrelevant, or he was ineffective. He said himself he was out of the loop. Now, let me give you an example. You said ask the question.
May I explain out of the loop? No operational role. Go ahead.
Now, you've said that if you'd known it was an arms for hostages swap, you would have opposed it. You said the first you knew it was an arms for hostages swap was in December of 1986.
When the whole thing became briefed to me by Senator Durenberger.
Exactly.
And the proximity of arms to hostages much closer.
But, Mr. Vice President, you went to Israel in July of 1986, and a member of your own staff, Mr. Craig Fuller, has verified, and so did the only other man there, Mr. Nir, Mr. Amaron Nir, who's the Israelis' top anti-terrorist man.
Yes.
Those two men were in a meeting with you, and Mr. Nir not once but three times underscored with you that this was a straight-out arms for hostages swap.
What they were doing.
Now, how do you reconcile
what they were doing?
How can you reconcile that you were there, Mr. Nir, underscored three separate occasions that it was an arms for hostages swap and told you were dealing with the most radical elements in Iran? You were dealing straight away with the Ayatollah Khomeini.
I was told what they were doing and not what we were doing, and that's the big difference. And Dan, I expressed my concerns and reservations about that. That has been testified to under oath by Mr. Poindexter, and it's been confirmed that I had reservations and spoke up by Don Regan. In fact, he said the other day that I expressed them to the President.
That's correct.
I don't discuss what I talk to the President because there's a principle involved. Nothing to do with Iran-Contra. It's the principle of confidentiality between the President and the Vice President.
Mr. Vice President, the President himself has said he wants all the facts out. He gave up such things as even his own diary. Every principle, including Secretary Schultz, he gave up some of it.
Well, Dan, let's be careful here because you're...
Yes, sir, I want you to be careful, Mr. Vice President, because the problem here...
But I want to
the problem here is that you repeatedly said in the meetings, you said in a meeting in which Secretary Schultz, in the most forceful way, registered his objections. And then you said you never heard anybody register objections.
If it was the most forceful way, I've heard George Schultz be very, very forceful. And if I were there and he was very, very forceful at that meeting, I would have remembered that. I don't remember that.
Then how do you explain that you can't remember it? The other people at the meeting say he was apoplectic.
I wasn't there at that point.
You weren't in the meeting?
I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying I don't remember it.
I don't want to be argumentative, Mr. Vice President.
You do, Dan. No, this is not a great night because I want to talk about why I want to be president, why those 41% of the people are supporting me.
And Mr. Vice President, these questions are
judge a whole career. It's not fair to judge my whole career by a rehash on Iran. How would you like it if I judged your career by those 7 minutes when you walked off the set in New York? Well, now, would you like that? I have respect for you, but I don't have respect for what you're doing here tonight.
Mr. Vice President, I think you'll agree that your qualification for president and what kind of leadership you'd bring to the country, what kind of government you'd have, what kind of people to have around him is much more important than what you just referred to. I'd be happy to...
I want to be judged on the whole record.
Well,
and you're not
and I'm trying to set the record straight.
You invited me to come here to talk about, I thought, the whole record.
I want you to talk about the record. You sat in a meeting with George Schultz.
Yes.
He got apoplectic when he found out that you and the President were being party of sending missiles to the Ayatollah of Iran. Can you explain how you were supposed to be you're an anti-terrorist expert. Iran was officially a terrorist state. You went around telling...
Explain that, Dan. I wanted those hostages. I wanted
Mr.
Mr. Buckley out of there.
But You've made us hypocrites in the face of the world. How could you sign on to such a policy?
Well,
and the question is, what does that tell us about your record?
Signed on to it. The same reason the president signed on to it. When a CIA agent is being tortured to death, maybe you err on the side of a human life. But everybody's admitted mistakes. I've admitted mistakes. And you want to dwell on them. And I want to talk about the values we believe in and the experience and the integrity that goes with all of this. And what's I'm going to do about education. And there's nothing new here. I thought this was a news program.
Well, I had hoped, Mr. Vice President, you would tell us to whom you expressed your reservations.
Yes, I did.
When you expressed them, and what the reservations were.
Under oath.
What were the reservations?
Reservation about getting the control of an operation in the hands of a foreign power. Don Regan stated the other day, and I never heard a word of it on CBS, that the Vice President, in the presence of the President, spoke up about his concern about the whole cover of an operation being blown and secret in people that you're dealing with, putting their lives in jeopardy.
And you weren't concerned about sending missiles to the Ayatollah Khomeini?
Every covert action. The President has explained that. The committee looked at that. And so there's nothing new on this.
Mr. Vice President, I appreciate you joining us tonight. I appreciate the straightforward way in which you engaged in this exchange. There are clearly some unanswered questions remain. Are you willing to go to a news conference before the Iowa caucuses, answer questions from all conferences
since March?
I gather that the answer is no. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Vice President. We'll be back with more news in a moment.